to Season 2 of Rooted and Reaching, a podcast about startups, entrepreneurs, and innovation in the South Bend Elkhart region of Indiana. I'm Marty Mechtenberg.
And I'm Susan Ford. We're excited to share 16 new stories with you this year. And we're going to get tactical about how entrepreneurs are confronting challenges, building success, and moving our region into the future.
Well, welcome back to Rooted and Reaching Season 2. I'm Marty Mechtenberg, and we are joined today by Rian McDonnell of FloVision Solutions. So this is a great counterpart. We just talked to sort of a handcrafted motorcycle manufacturer, and Rian is on the other end of the equation in some ways with a much more high-tech company doing really important work for the world, I would say. Can you tell us a little bit about what FloVision Solutions does?
Yeah, 100%. So FloVision Solutions is a food analytics platform. So we are basically optimizing the food chain, starting with protein. We basically use AI and use cameras and other sensors to measure yield, measure waste, measure quality control, different features, defects, etc., to optimize that food chain.
Yeah. Okay, it sounds complicated.
Sure.
And also fascinating. And also, how on earth did you get to this point? Like, was it a technology designed for something else and you're applying it to the food systems?
Yeah, it definitely took us a while to get to this point. So I originally grew up in Ireland. I grew up in rural Ireland.
Okay.
So, my family were in beef vaguely. So kind of, I grew up around it, vaguely osmosis, learned a lot about it, had no intention of being in the industry. And I did my undergrad in Trinity in Dublin, did like mechanical engineering, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And then went to Notre Dame, did a 1-year STEAM program.
Got it.
Like business for engineers.
Yep.
And we were originally focusing then on cafeterias, like using this type of technology to make them more efficient, looking at different pans and optimizing all of that.
Yeah.
And then slowly through 2021, 2022, we realized that just the business case was so much stronger in protein value. It's just there's so much more expensive products. They go through so much in these production facilities that we made that decision.
So what do you mean by protein? Can you explain to us what? I go to restaurants now and they're always like, you get this rice bowl. What kind of protein do you want in it? Is that, I'm assuming it's...
Yeah, our focus is beef, pork, and chicken.
Beef, pork, and chicken.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you started with cafeterias, or at least the original idea. This was you and a couple of partners in the Esteem program, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was back before Esteem. I was kind of fiddling with it with a couple of people, and then they all kind of dropped off, and then it was just me for a while. And then I met my co-founder. She had graduated from Notre Dame the year before, undergrad. And she reached out in April 2020, right when the world turned upside down.
Yeah.
And we were doing the McCloskey Notre Dame business plan competition.
Of course.
So that's how she saw us. And then it was just me and her for the guts of a year then. And then we started to bring on a couple other people.
Okay. So did you start doing some of this work when you were back in Ireland?
Yeah, my last year back in Ireland, I was when this sort of started to vaguely form.
Okay. And we've been saying so what actually is the product or the process here?
Yeah. So all it is basically at its very simple level is we buy cameras off the shelf, Intel type stuff, and we install them on food production lines, either on conveyors or on stationary stations, and they monitor what's happening. And then we use AI to analyze that footage to spot different things and to watch those videos and to gather all the relevant stuff. And then you present that in any interesting ways, create feedback loops, show it to the relevant people, the manager, the supervisor, the operator themselves to make the changes and to be more efficient.
I see. So I'm imagining food coming down a conveyor belt of some sort and a camera pointed down at it.
Pretty much.
And it's filming?
Yeah.
And then that film is then being run through
pretty much
your AI.
At its basic level, that's everything we do involves that in some way. Okay. And then we're using that data in different ways. Yeah. Either we're just presenting, KPIs like, okay, this is what happened over the last hour. This was your target. This is how far off you were. Or when we get complicated, we're actually using that data in real time to show the operator how to do a better job. Like, one of our applications in beef is we show lasers to say, this is where you can trim for this next piece, follow the line to be precise and hit your target to
No
create that
kidding.
feedback loop.
No kidding. So the operator is seeing this real time
For
then able
ones,
and able to make decisions
Yeah.
on the line.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that is fascinating. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get that, and I can even start to understand. Okay, in a cafeteria where the idea may have come from, but where did the actual idea come from?
Yeah.
Were you did you see a problem that needed to be solved, or were you just playing with the idea of analyzing video?
Yeah, for me, I was so I did a year abroad in California at
Okay.
UC Berkeley, and around that time, I was 21, 22 maybe, I don't know, time's meaningless at this point.
Yeah.
I
Younger.
Yeah, exactly. I decided that whatever I did was going to be in some way sustainability focused, climate
Okay.
change, environmental. There has to be something there.
Okay.
So that was the decision I made. I then went back to Trinity back in Ireland and did a dissertation project, and I had my options, and one of them was food waste. And that was the one that was the most sustainability focused. And I said, right, I'm going to jump on that one. I want that one.
I see. So these were a set of options that were presented to you. You could do a thesis project on X, Y, or Z, and one of those was food waste. And you were like, okay, that's sustainability related. That's where my passion is.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So I leapt into food waste. Did that 9 months of the dissertation project back and forth, just talking to hundreds of people in the industry, et cetera, et cetera. And then that led the cafeteria starting, and the rest is history.
So you weren't like, okay, food waste, that's the sexiest of all the projects, so I'm taking that one.
Not at all. No. I would say it was probably the least sexy of the projects.
Yeah. I mean, I'm joking a little bit because obviously I'm sure it's a massive problem globally.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, when people think of food waste, it's I listened to a podcast myself over the weekend about the disposals, that the early disposals, and there was an idea at the time that it would eliminate food waste because people would just shove it down the garbage disposal and it would be ground up and disappear.
Yeah.
And that was like part of the selling point of those old devices, the disposals. So
yeah, I mean the food chain is fascinating. Like a third of human climate impact comes from food in some way.
Wow.
Either food waste, 8%, food packaging, food production. If you do all the transport, everything, you get to about a third of our emissions, which is not nothing.
Not at all.
And it's the one that's everyone needs to eat food. It's vital. You can look at, how do we make planes go slower? How do we do all this?
Right.
Everyone needs to eat food. So we've got to make that system efficient.
Right. So when you started looking at cafeterias, you were looking at it through that angle or through that lens, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To create less food waste in a cafeteria setting.
Exactly.
So what was your first experiment?
For a while, we tested both pre-consumer and post-consumer. So in a cafeteria, when you go and take your food, we looked at in the kitchen, what's going on there? How do we make that more efficient? How do we make everything pre-consumer taking the food?
Yeah.
We learned the people running cafeterias are very good at that. There is always an extra 10, 20% to be done. But it's a very challenging thing because these people spend 20, 30 years in cafeteria. They learn how to make it somewhat efficient and make a good business out of it.
Sure. It makes sense.
And we looked at post-consumer. How do we, because that's data that's not really gathered today, because looking in trash bins, analyzing what people are eating, what they're not eating.
Right.
It's a complicated thing.
Right.
And we did that for a while, and there's valuable there in terms of knowing, okay, the green beans didn't perform on Tuesday, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
So we looked at all of that. The bit that we were focusing the most on was the consumer choice aspect, where you're in a cafeteria line, because that was the bit where there's a lot of variables at play, and there was the most opportunity we saw to actually maximize that, particularly in school cafeterias.
So these were secondary education cafeterias, and you were gathering this data by using the similar technology that you're using now with like videotaping. Or capturing video of the students going through the line and then observing their choices and
of the food, not the students themselves.
Sure,
But yeah,
sure.
exactly. So cameras above the food,
Yep.
watching it, seeing what was getting consumed, trying to spot the trends there to maximize that.
How did you convince the first cafeteria to let you come in there and install these cameras?
Good question. I got lucky, I suppose. Chicago-based company, a guy that I got to know, I'm still very good friends with. He was also an immigrant into the country.
Okay.
We kind of bonded over that. He's from England, I'm from Ireland. We
Yeah.
had a good bit of
Yeah.
banter there and all that. And he was really looking for technology solutions because he saw, he was pretty innovative, forward looking.
Sure.
Knew there was going to be something here.
Yeah.
So he was just like, let's, you've got something here. Let's try it. He was very forward focused, and he kind of gave us free reign of the place.
Okay. So he said, so he was running a cafeteria?
Yeah, they service 150 school cafeterias.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So you did a pilot, I'm assuming, like a pilot in a certain school.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did that, and you were at Notre Dame at the time?
That was post Notre Dame, probably about 6 months after graduation. Yeah.
Okay. But you and your partner, your co-founder, were working together at this point.
Yeah.
So you implemented that first project together.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. So you did that, and then you mentioned, though, that you quickly realized, or you relatively quickly realized, that there was more to be gained by looking at the protein lines or the protein production.
You say quickly. I wish it was quicker than it was, but I mean, we went through a lot of iterations in that, but also in quick service. We were trying to throw everything at the wall, see what sticks.
I see.
Which tends to be the best way to get to a quick answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, through 2021, we started experimenting in the protein stuff. I had a couple of connections, thankfully, to try it out back home in Ireland.
Okay.
Play around with this and that, do a bit of R&D, see if this makes sense, to just test out the business case and see if there's anything there.
Yeah. So you were using test case. Were you mostly in Chicago at that point? When you were doing the cafeteria work anyway. Yeah. So you were getting results, and you were communicating these results to your customers, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you were like, what else could we do?
Yeah.
Like where could this grow? Where could we be more impactful? I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but
we throughout 2021, we had two businesses on their own. Basically, we had the protein and we had the cafeteria. We knew at some point we'd have to focus.
Yeah.
And everyone, we had investors at this point. Everyone was like, you got to pick one. And I would say, I know, but I don't know which one yet.
Right.
So, we spent a whole year figuring out which one to focus on.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask more about the investors in a minute, but I want to get back to, so the first protein, I'm sorry, I'm not using the right word, protein production line. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So that actually happened back in Ireland.
Yes.
Was that through a family connection or through a Trinity connection?
Family connection.
Family connection.
Yeah. So we work with a customer back home in Ireland, who was from a family connection. So we got pretty lucky there. We installed our first actual on the production line device in October 22.
October 22.
Yeah.
And what was the protein, if I can ask?
Beef.
It was beef.
Yeah.
So this was a beef production line. Yeah. You installed the cameras and started gathering data.
Yeah.
And did you know what you were looking for at that point?
By that point, so when we initially talked to that customer, they said, we think we want to do A. And we were like, okay, let's figure out if A is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we then were like, why don't we do B? And it was very much, starting to figure out. And we still haven't done what they were looking for in day one. We haven't done that yet because we just kept finding bigger value things that are more important to look at quickly.
Got it.
But getting in and trying A was the key to finding B, C, and D.
Sure.
We then decided to focus on more.
Yeah, so that's a tricky conversation to have with a customer, right? They're asking for A, and they're letting you come in and install the stuff, and then you're saying, actually, you don't want A, you want B and C.
Yeah.
Was it hard to convince them, or did the data do the talking for you?
The data mostly did the talking. Like they, at the end of the day, the reason they wanted A was because they thought it was going to be the most valuable thing for this technology. And then when we were suggesting other things, it was all very early pilots. It was all going to be, let's try this for a couple of weeks. Let's see what happens. Very low risk. So there was no real reason to not, like, again,
Makes
when
sense.
you find someone who's future focused, like thinking in
Yeah.
this way, they're always willing to try these things. So yeah, we were experimenting with a ton of different stuff, gathering various bits of information, seeing what we could throw together,
Yeah.
to build a business case around it.
Yeah. So I want to ask about the technology for half a second, because I just started hearing about AI like last year. Right? You obviously have been working with AI
Sure.
since before that. So like, when did that happen, and how did you learn? I get where the idea of looking at food waste
Yeah.
was a passion that you identified as something where you could make a difference in the world of sustainability. But how did you marry that with the expertise needed to do that level of analysis?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pet peeve that I'll tell you honestly. I hate the term AI, but everyone has to use it now. And I've adopted it. I also say AI. ML I prefer, but that's
which is
the
machine learning.
Yeah. But AI has become the brand of everything, and that completely makes sense. It's a catchy term.
True.
So yeah, I mean, computer vision as a segment of AI has been going for a long time. It's a very mature aspect of AI. So there's a lot of engineering stuff that's been done on it. So it kind of, in the engineering circles, isn't a modern thing. It's a well established. There are applications for this, and then obviously ChatGPT completely opened the eyes of the world to AI, and it was a really incredible demo and so on that no one expected to be as eye opening as that.
Wow.
But that really puts AI in a different light. Like, it's really flashy. Whereas a lot of the undertones of AI, it's just grunt work. It's, you got to do the hours. You got to look at the data. You got to play with different parameters. There's a huge amount of effort that goes into building any sort of model, that is incredibly tedious to a certain extent. It's looking at data, it's understanding data, and then trying to get the machine to build its own understanding and go off into the future and become ChatGPT.
So you're feeding it so that it can learn what you need it to learn.
And a lot of that in computer vision looks like you looking at an image, you drawing boxes, you drawing shapes and saying, this is X.
Here's what we're looking for. Yeah.
I'm going to do this 500 times for the machine, and then hopefully it'll gain an understanding of what X is.
Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating, because what you're actually saying is that AI has been living among us for years and we just didn't know it.
Yes.
Wow.
Your keyboard in your iPhone has been using some form of AI for a long time, and it's just, Apple will never say the term AI because they don't want to sully the waters.
Sure. So in your case, though, the technology was there, but you did have to train it to look for what you needed it to look for. So how did you know what to even look for? You're an engineer, not a food scientist. I mean, you must have collaborated with other folks or identified where the problems were, or where the issues were.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it just comes down to talking to people, getting reps in of having those conversations. So, we talk to as many people as we can, especially in the early days. It's never say no to a conversation. And you have to be your own filter for weighing the different pieces of information. But
that makes sense.
Take as much information as you can in, and, then we would get a load of different ideas, and a lot of them we'll never get to, or won't get to for 10 years, but it's still in the back of the head from these conversations. But you just gotta go through those reps of getting that intake information, and then filter yourself, and keep testing things in a conversation with someone. I might throw in what about this, and they may say that's a terrible idea. Okay, great. I've learned
good to know.
Or they may get a bit of a twinkle in their eye, and then you can double down, dig in a little bit more. They'll have their own take to it, and just got to go through the reps.
Wow. So you and your co-founder were learning as you went along too, but then applying the technology, teaching the technology based on everything that you were learning during these conversations, and applying it to this very specific area. Yeah. So, okay. So back to the investors part. So you started doing this work. You were not at Notre Dame at the time.
Yeah, when we first started.
When you first started, you were in Chicago?
So the first concepts were back in Dublin.
Back in Dublin. Okay.
Then it was Notre Dame, and then it was Chicago, and
I
that's
see.
when it it was COVID, so it was a bit of everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was really 2020, 2021 Chicago / Dublin / Notre Dame that kind of formulated this and turned it into a business.
Okay.
With the investor stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So tell us about the investor stuff. Like, how did you, relatively young person with,
Sure.
I don't know how old your co-founder is, but I'm assuming also a relatively young person with this great idea. How did you even begin the conversation to get money to support the work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So 2020 was, a strange time, but I wouldn't say we knew we had something, but I was definitely interested enough to keep pushing it.
Yeah.
Looking back in retrospect, we had a lot less than we thought we did. Like, I was thinking, oh, we're doing great here, and it's a completely different world now. Again, it's always never say no to a conversation. That's step one. You never know who someone's going to know or can talk to, not only the customer side but also the investor side.
Sure.
We went through a program called G Beta.
Familiar with it?
Down in Indy.
Yeah.
And that was a huge eye opener in terms of the procedures of, like, okay, they put us through the whole gambit of weekly meetings with mentors, with investors, and that really allowed us to expand our network. We got our first checks from McCloskey and from G Beta.
Okay.
So we got to get to like 150K from 25K from this angel investor, 25K from this small VC. And that was really just through reps and, learning what worked, what didn't, having a pitch deck that was in some way told a story.
Got it.
Problem, solution, potential for the business, etc. But it was all very early days, who knows how big this could be in 10 years time.
Right.
Big thinking.
Okay, that's impressive though. So you applied for and got accepted into the G Beta program.
Yeah.
And then that with your Notre Dame connections and other things, like we were able to sort of leverage that into some additional conversations.
Yeah, McCloskey and G Beta were the first two things to really.
So what happened to McCloskey? Did you win McCloskey?
No, we got to the
I should know that. Semi. You got to the semis.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. That was 2020, and McCloskey was very suddenly turned virtual.
Yes.
So it was a bit all over the place.
Yes.
And completely fair, it was April. But yeah, we got to the semi-final. We won like a runner-up prize to get to pitch Plug and Play Ventures.
Oh yeah.
Based out in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And Plug and Play were our first 25K check.
They were your first. Okay, yeah. That's excellent. They're in Indiana now. They just opened up a medtech facility in Warsaw, of all places, around the orthopedic industry.
I did just see that. Yeah, no, they're an impressive organization. Like they're doing a lot of stuff in a lot of places. They're really grassroots. But yeah, they were our first 25K. That was October 2020. So that took 6 months after.
And that was because of McCloskey, huh?
Yeah, McCloskey got us the intro. The runner-up prize was to pitch Plug and Play.
Got it.
At an event.
Got it.
And then by October, they actually put in 25K.
Yeah. Okay. And then after that, you did the G Beta program.
We were doing the G Beta at the same time.
At the same time that you got
September,
the check.
October.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you were juggling a lot of balls at that point because I'm assuming you're also working with customers and you're still working on the technology.
Yeah. You just gotta try things, throw everything at the wall at that time and see what sticks.
Wow. Yeah, that is a lot to balance. So, where are you with customers right now? I mean, is it like how are you applying this technology now? I mean, to expand your reach into industries, is there resistance? Are people looking at the efficiencies and saying, yes, please come show us how we can save money? Yeah,
I mean, I think the whole AI boom has had definite tailwinds for us.
Makes sense.
We were, selling this as analytics, AI. This is going to, revolutionize your yield, reduce your waste, etc.
Yeah.
And, it was positive. It was iterating away and getting into particularly beef was our focus at the start because we had that first install.
Yeah.
And then just in the last, let's say 6 to 12 months, things have sort of, it's a bit of a flywheel where your connections breed more connections.
Right.
Your network breeds more network.
Right.
Where we then decided to jump into poultry because we had people reaching out to us on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see you do this for beef. Can you do this for poultry?
Right.
So then that sort of starts to feed upon itself a little bit. And I think the tailwind and people looking at this with a new glint in their eye of seeing AI, what could AI do for me?
Right. So you've grown over the last few years. You and your co-founder are still running the company.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you've probably had to hire folks at this point.
Yeah, we're at 7 full-timers and 3 part-timers.
Yeah. So how has that been? I mean, all of a sudden you're the boss, right? You're responsible for people. You have to delegate and manage staff.
Well, I think Elise is the real boss most of the time.
Okay.
My co-founder. She's the one that actually does most of the. I'm very lucky to have her. Put it that way. She does a lot of the hiring, recruiting, and because the team is very engineering focused.
Yeah.
Everyone who isn't me is building product every day. I would love to, but I get to do all the boring stuff now. Means that they're all working under Elise and with Elise, and they have a nice unit there. So I mean, I'm just very lucky to have her, and I trust her implicitly to figure most of the stuff out. But I think for us, it's just been about finding. We use the term of lifelong learners. Of just like, how can we find someone who just is curious? That's the most important thing. And if they're curious, they'll figure things out.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine a good co-founder who complements the skills that you bring is really a valuable thing to have.
100%.
So what is the boring work that you have to do?
Sales, business, admin,
going on podcasts. Yeah.
No, I mean, we've built out the engineering team because we had to build the product, and they're technically complex products. I'm really looking forward to building out the sales and marketing team further. For sure. That'll be an exciting next 6 months.
How did you so are you based in South Bend in the region somewhere?
Yeah, in Mishawaka.
So how did we get so lucky to convince you? You were in Chicago, you could have been in Dublin.
Yeah.
You could have been somewhere else. Like how did you decide to come back here and locate the company here?
Yeah, I mean, we're a remote company, so I could be anywhere, and we have employees dotted all over the country.
Yeah.
Notre Dame was a big impact. We get interns from Notre Dame. We work with Notre Dame a good bit. We have good relationships there.
Yep.
My girlfriend's doing a PhD in Notre Dame, so that
definitely keeps you here a little bit. Yeah. Hopefully she'll drag that out. Well, not for your sake, but for our sake. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I mean, so that's been a big part, and being close to Chicago is key because there's a lot of food tech's very big in Chicago. It's a bit of a hub there as well.
Got it. I imagine you're on the road a fair bit too, traveling to your customers or making new customer connections.
Yeah. As I'm, doing all the sales, I have been in the last 15 months now, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Brazil, Germany, Portugal, Spain, UK.
Wow.
Ireland.
Wow. Is it a pretty, if you do get a customer in Australia or wherever it may, is the installation relatively straightforward? Is it like a rig that you bring out and you set up on the production line?
Yeah, so it's the big complication is food safety and hygienic design, to be able to design for wash down and because they
that makes
really
sense.
Spray these places down.
Yeah.
So we work with typically a third party to do stainless steel enclosure to keep everything safe. And then we assemble electronics to stick into that. Got it.
And then this gets installed sort of as a cell on the production line. Yeah, that makes sense. That's amazing. So where are you working at this point? Other than the United States, and Dublin,
UK, Ireland, Poland, US and Australia.
Okay, US and Australia. And are you having to adjust to different proteins?
Yeah,
in every place, or is it mostly the beef and chicken at this point still?
Yeah, beef, chicken, pork.
Beef, chicken, pork.
We'll get into seafood at some point, but it's a little while away. We're focused on beef, chicken, pork.
Okay. Fish, huh? Or seafood, right? Could be shrimp.
Yeah. It's a natural extension. The value proposition is very similar.
I imagine.
So at some point it'll make sense. But we'll take our time. I think we've got enough on our plate right now.
Yes, it sounds like you do, and lots of room to keep growing.
Yeah,
it sounds like.
Sure.
So you mentioned living in Mishawaka. So I like to sort of end the podcast a little bit with asking, what else are you doing in the region to make this a place that you would want to stay, potentially to live, to work, to play? What would you like to see in the region?
Yeah, good question. I'm a huge fan of everything that's been done around the Mishawaka River Walk. First of all, it is very nice.
Yeah.
I think honestly, a huge thing for me, and I know this is like one wish, it's a big infrastructure ask. A high-speed rail in America would be a life changer. The South Shore line is great to get into Chicago.
Yeah.
If that was double the speed, it would be fantastic.
Yes.
I think it would have huge changes. But no, I think they're proposing a big project in South Bend, whatever that is, with the big capital expenditure. Renovating the downtown and so on will be pretty key. And I think Notre Dame working with the city more and more will have a big impact there as well.
Yeah, I'm excited about some of that too. The hospital expanding and a bunch of new construction projects. Notre Dame having a presence in downtown.
Yeah,
I do think maybe 5 years from now it's going to be a very different place.
Yeah, 100%.
If these projects come to fruition.
100%.
Yeah, high speed rail. I mean, you're definitely European, right?
Yeah.
You have that experience, and it probably seems a bit crazy to you that we have this massive country with terrible rail travel.
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for Amtrak a lot of the time. They're doing their best, and they have one hand tied behind their back. But I think it would be a revelation in terms of secondary cities growing into primary ones. Like obviously Chicago is the big bad wolf that South Bend works with and cooperates with. And it's the closest huge center. But a great infrastructure connection like a high-speed rail would revolutionize that. You'd see a lot more people commuting in and et cetera, and it would make a huge difference in my opinion. But
no, I mean, sure, think about it. A 45-minute ride between downtown South Bend and downtown Chicago on a high-speed rail line. And that would be kind of a game changer.
Yeah, obviously it's not anytime soon, but maybe one day.
Maybe that's your next venture.
A bit too capital intensive.
Yeah, probably very much so. Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. I guess maybe just last question. Tell us who in your life, in terms of an advisor, a mentor, like who kept you going when maybe you weren't sure that this was the right path. Or was that you and your co-founder together just making this happen? I imagine there must have been some people in your life that kept you going or gave you that connection or that access at a kind of a critical moment.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think there was any one person per se, but I think like going through, first of all, the Esteem program in Notre Dame meant that not everyone from that's going to go into entrepreneurship. Obviously, you can't have 100% there. But starting with that meant that, there were 3 or 4 people who were all, trying their own businesses and so on. So it was nice to have a start of like a support community talking shop.
Right. They're going through some of the same things you're going through. Yeah.
And then from there, it kind of, it's kind of just everyone all at once, like family, parents back home. It's obviously my girlfriend here. Like there's no one person, but I think it's good that I would say I have 10 different people I could call at any moment, and just, moan. But having them means that you may not need to because they're there. That's kind of all you need sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. And the flip side of that question, somebody going through the Esteem program right now, for example, or a high school student, like what advice would you give them if they're thinking about entrepreneurship as a path for them? Like what do you wish somebody would have told you 5 years ago, or what would you tell someone?
I was and still am a fairly socially awkward person, like especially in like the high school ages. I wasn't really bothered to talk to many people.
Okay.
And
now you're doing sales.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny how that works out.
Yes.
I think just the whole having the conversations, like Esteem definitely turned my, like the whole building your network and all that stuff.
Okay.
But I just having conversations, especially while you're a student, you have a free pass to have a conversation. You just say, I'm a student, and someone wants to help you.
That is true. And you can ask whatever question you want.
Yeah, exactly. You use that pass for all it's worth, in my opinion. It can be any topic, anything. Someone's going to have a conversation.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
All right. Rian, thank you so much. This actually has been a fascinating conversation, and I'm super curious to see where you grow with this, because food waste is probably just becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And if this technology can help us like hone that down.
100%. There's going to be 10 billion people soon enough in the world, so more food waste.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you. Doing our best.
Yeah.